The COBIT 5 Foundation Certificate, Module 5, the Process Capability Assessment Model. Lesson 2, the Process Assessment Model. Welcome to Module 5, Lesson 2. In this lesson, we'll study the Process Reference Model, the Process Assessment Model, and the Measurement Framework. The diagram on your screen shows the COBIT Process Assessment Model and the Assessor Guide. You can see the three components of the Process Assessment Model. The Process Reference Model, this is used to define the basic requirements of a process. The Measurement Framework, this provides the basis for evaluating the capability level of a process. And the Process Assessment Model. The Assessor Guide is outside of the scope of this course, so you won't be tested on it in the exam. But you will get a better understanding of COBIT 5 as a whole if you spend a few minutes studying the lower part of the diagram. Let's now look at the three components of the assessment model in detail. We'll start with the Process Reference Model. ISO IEC 15504 defines this as a model composed of definitions of processes in a life cycle described in terms of process purpose and outcomes, together with an architecture describing the relationships amongst the processes. You've seen the diagram on your screen before. It's the COBIT 5 Process Reference Model. This shows the 37 governance and management processes described by COBIT and how they are grouped in domains. Now let's look at some terminology used by ISO 15504. Process purpose. The high-level measurable objectives of performing the process and the likely outcomes of effective implementation of the process. You'll remember from Module 3, Lesson 2, that the definition of each process includes a statement of its purpose. Process outcome. An observable result of a process. An outcome is an artifact, a significant change of state, or the meeting of specified constraints. In the case of COBIT 5, these are the process goals. Other terminology used by ISO 15504 are base practice, an activity that, when consistently performed, contributes to achieving a specific process purpose. Work product, an artifact associated with the execution of a process. These are specific for each process. They correspond to the management practices and work products defined for each COBIT 5 process. We'll examine the significance of these later in the lesson. Next, generic practice. An activity that, when consistently performed, contributes to the achievement of a specific process attribute. Put simply, these are the activities that are required to manage a process. An example would be process improvement activities. Generic work product. These are work products that are produced by generic activities. They are work products required to support the management of a process. An example is a process improvement plan. The publication Process Assessment Model PAM using COBIT 5 documents the COBIT 5 Process Reference Model. It is based on the documentation in the Process Reference Guide that you were introduced to in Module 3, Lesson 2. The format is changed to align it with ISO 15504, and there is some extra information. The process ID, name, description, and purpose statement are identical to those you're familiar with. The documentation for each process in the reference model has three further sections: outcomes, base practices, and work products. We'll look at each of these over the next three screens and use Process BAI 06 Manage Changes as an example. The first section of the process reference model is Outcomes. For the Manage Changes process, this section reads BAI 06-01. Authorized changes are made in a timely manner and with minimal errors. BAI 06-02. Impact assessments reveal the effect of the change on all affected components. BAI 06-03. All emergency changes are reviewed and authorized after the change. BAI 06-04. Key stakeholders are kept informed of all aspects of the change. These are the process goals documented in the Process Reference Guide. The only difference is that each one has been given an identifier. The second section of the Process Reference Model is Base Practices. These correspond with the management practices described in the Process Reference Guide. The Process Reference Model assigns an identifier to each practice and documents which process outcome the practice supports. The Manage Changes process has 4 base practices that correspond with the 4 management practices. We'll use one of these as an example to show you what is documented in the Process Reference Guide. Base Practice Number BAI 06 BP1. Description: Evaluate, prioritize, and authorize change requests. Supports: BAI 06-01. You can see that this base practice supports the process outcome. Authorized changes are made in a timely manner and with minimal errors. The third section of the Process Reference Model is Work Products. This includes subsections for inputs and outputs. Let's take these separately, starting with outputs. The Process Reference Model assigns an identifier to each output and documents where the output goes and what it supports. Let's illustrate that using an output defined for the Manage Changes process. Work Product Number BAI 06 WP1. Description: Impact assessments. Input to Internal. This work product is used by the Manage Changes process itself. Many process outputs are then input to other processes. In that case, this section would identify the target process and management practice. Supports: BAI 06 BP1 and BAI 06-02. This attribute identifies the base practice and outcome supported by the work product. Next, we'll look at the work products that are inputs to the process. The Process Reference Model assigns an identifier to each input, describes it, and documents what aspect of the process it supports. Work Product Number BAI 03 WP6. Most of the inputs to any process come from another process. They are the outputs of another process. Work products are identified in the process that creates them, and they retain that identifier when referenced elsewhere. In this example, work product BAI 03 WP6 is an output from process BAI 03. Description: Integrated and configured solution components. Supports: BAI 06 BP1 and BAI 06-02. This attribute identifies the base practice and outcome supported by this input. Or, to put it another way, it identifies the base practice and output that are dependent on this input. If the input is in any way deficient or substandard, then that practice and outcome will be jeopardized. Let's review these concepts with an exercise. Plan to spend 20 minutes on this exercise, and don't forget to check your study guide for suggested solution. COBIT Process DSS-02 is to manage service requests and incidents. Document what you think the process purpose, outcomes, base practices, and work products might be. Don't forget, you can contact your tutor if you need to, or if you would like your exercise output reviewed. Now let's step back from the detail of the Process Reference Model and take a wider perspective. The model provides us with a number of valuable things. Together with the goals cascade mechanism, it links tangible work products to enterprise goals. It documents the complex web of dependencies between processes, and, by linking and identifying processes, practices, outcomes, and work products, it provides a solid framework for a robust, systematic assessment. Okay, that completes our examination of the process reference model. We've included a copy of the complete documentation of the Managed Service Requests and Incidents process as it appears in the ISACA publication. You will not be examined at this level of detail, but we advise you to spend 10 minutes studying it to improve your understanding. The next topic we'll study is the Process Assessment Model, or PAM, as it's often referred to. The model takes a two-dimensional view of process capability. The process dimension. This dimension is concerned with the specifics of the 37 COBIT processes as defined by the process reference model that you learned about earlier. The capability dimension is concerned with the generic attributes that we discussed earlier in this lesson. It provides a means of evaluating how well a process meets the current or future goals of the enterprise. Let's take a closer look at the capability dimension. There are 6 capability levels defined. These are numbered from 0 to 5. Level 0. Incomplete process. The process is not implemented or it fails to achieve its purpose. Level 1. Performed process. The process is implemented and meets its purpose. The process assessment model forms the basis of an assessment at this level. Level 2. Managed process. The process is planned, monitored, and adjusted, and its work products are established, controlled, and maintained. The other capability levels are: Level 3. Established process. The process has been implemented using a defined standard process. Level 4. Predictable process. The process operates consistently within defined limits. And Level 5. Optimizing process. The process is continuously reviewed and improved to maintain alignment with current and forecast business goals. It's important to understand that capability is cumulative. A capability level includes all the capabilities of the levels below. So, a process must have reached Level 3, for example, before it can be assessed at Level 4. Let's consider these with an exercise. Plan to spend 20 minutes on this exercise, and don't forget we'll include a suggested solution in your study guide. Imagine you are assessing process DSS02, Manage Incidents and Service Requests. What sort of evidence would you need to assess the process to be level 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? We'll show you a reminder of the levels on the next screen. You can see the process capability levels here. What sort of evidence would lead you to believe process DSS02 was at each of these levels? For example, if users rang anyone they knew in IT support to get something fixed and nothing was documented, you might rate that as level 0. Okay, you now know what capability levels are. Next, you need to learn about the criteria used to determine the level. First, a couple of definitions from ISO 15504. Process attribute. A measurable characteristic of process capability applicable to any process. And attribute indicator. An assessment indicator that helps to evaluate how well a specific process attribute is being achieved. Nine process attributes are defined and associated with particular capability levels. Let's go through them, level by level. Level 0 is the starting point. A process at this level is incomplete, so of course it won't achieve any of the process attributes. Remember though, a process must achieve level 1 before it can be considered for level 2. Just one process attribute is used to characterize a Level 1 process. PA 1.1 Process Performance. A measure of the extent to which the process purpose is achieved. You will not be surprised to see that each process attribute has an identifier, in this case, PA 1.1. Capability Level 2 has two process attributes. PA 2.1 Performance Management. A measure of the extent to which the performance of the process is managed. PA 2.2 Work Product Management. A measure of the extent to which the work products produced by the process are appropriately managed. Two process attributes characterize a Level 3 process. PA 3.1 Process Definition. A measure of the extent to which a standard process is maintained to support the deployment of the defined process. PA 3.2 Process Deployment. A measure of the extent to which the standard process is effectively deployed as a defined process to achieve its process outcomes. A Level 4 process is characterized by these two process attributes. PA 4.1 Process Measurement. A measure of the extent to which measurement results are used to ensure that performance of the process supports the achievement of relevant process performance objectives in support of defined business goals. Measures may be either process measures or product measures or both. PA 4.2 Process Control. A measure of the extent to which the process is quantitatively managed to produce a process that is stable, capable, and predictable within defined limits. And finally, the process attributes that characterize a Level 5 process are PA 5.1 Process Innovation. A measure of the extent to which changes to the process are identified from analysis of common causes of variation in performance and from investigations of innovative approaches to the definition and deployment of the process. PA 5.2 Process Optimization. A measure of the extent to which changes to the definition, management, and performance of the process result in effective impact that achieves the relevant process improvement objectives. You've learned what the 9 process attributes are and how they relate to each capability level. COBIT defines a number of attribute indicators for each of these process attributes. These provide very specific, tangible criteria for evaluating each process attribute. The detail of that is beyond the scope of this course. For exam purposes, you just need to know the 9 process attributes and the capability level they are associated with. COBIT provides an objective, quantified means of scoring a process against a process attribute. This score is then used to assign a rating to the process. The detail of how the scoring is done is outside the scope of this course, but you do need to know about the rating. There are 4 possible ratings. N. Not achieved. There is little or no evidence of achievement of the defined attribute in the assessed process. P. Partially achieved. There is some evidence of an approach to and some achievement of the defined attribute in the assessed process. Some aspects of achievement of the attribute may be unpredictable. L. Largely achieved. There is evidence of a systematic approach to and significant achievement of the defined attribute in the assessed process. Some weakness related to this attribute may exist in the assessed process. F. Fully achieved. There is evidence of a complete and systematic approach to and full achievement of the defined attribute in the assessed process. No significant weaknesses related to this attribute exist in the assessed process. A consistent means of rating is used across all process attributes. A score of 0 to 15% is rated as N, not achieved. A score of more than 15% but 50% or less is P, partially achieved. A score of more than 50% but 85% or less is rated L, largely achieved. And a score of more than 85% is rated as F, fully achieved. Obviously, the scoring and rating mechanism that you've just learned about provide an enterprise with useful information about the capability of its processes and how they have changed since the last assessment. The ratings are also used to determine the capability level of a process. To achieve a pass for a certain level, a process must be rated L, largely, or F, fully at that level, and be rated F fully on the lower levels. To be able to move on to another capability level, all process attributes must be F, fully for that process. Okay, that completes this lesson on the process assessment model. You learned about the process reference model, the process assessment model, and the measurement framework. You've also finished Module 5, where we've studied the process capability assessment model. In Module 6, we have some exam guidance for you before you take the sample exam included with your course material.